Now, thank God, Nanny State Sturgeon has finally decided to leave. We now have some new contenders for the First Minister of Scotland. So, one of these contenders, Kate Forbes, has received a lot of backlash for her Christian views. Darren, what do you make of this?
Well, I think it's really interesting, Jess, because if you ask me, if Forbes was a Muslim, right, they absolutely wouldn't be picking apart what is mainstream teaching in that religion, that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that actually there are only two sexes, man and woman, and you can't change sex, right? That's common in the Islam, that's common in Christianity, it's common in a whole host of other religions. It's a pretty mainstream view. But you can't think that if you're a Christian. You can't voice those views if you're a Christian. You know, Tony Blair famously apparently once said, or I believe it was Alistair Campbell, obviously Tony Blair's director of communications, said that we don't do God. And when Tony Blair left office, he spoke about his faith. He didn't feel confident enough speaking about it whilst he was in office for those, what was 10 years going on 11 years. He afterwards only felt brave enough, and that now is far worse. You know, you see this in the attacks on Kate Forbes. I've seen tweets saying that she has ruled herself out, she should be precluded from standing for First Minister of Scotland, despite the fact, Jess, she's not said that she would vote along religious lines. She's not holding up a copy of the Old and New Testament and saying, well, actually, here's my policy proposal. Here's what I would put in the SNP manifesto. She's saying, these are my views. This is my faith. This is something that guides me. She says she doesn't believe in sex outside of marriage. Many British people don't believe in sex outside of marriage. Many people think that actually fatherless homes have been one of the biggest blights on modern society of all that any that you can possibly think of. And I just think it's really, really quite telling that it's exclusively okay to preclude Christians from high office, but not any other religion. And I think that is a new intolerance, Jess. I think that's a new bigotry. These people think they're progressive, but actually I'd argue that they're the bigots.
I think this is just an absolute distraction away from what matters to the average Scottish person. I think
Yeah.
they much care more about like education, the drug issue in Scotland, healthcare, the gender issue in Scotland, which basically led to Sturgeon's downfall. I think these are things that matter to the average Scottish person so much more than this. Like, we realistically know that she's not going to do anything. I think she said that she's not going to do anything. It's absolutely ridiculous that we're focusing on this.
Absolutely. And I mean, Kate Forbes, as finance secretary or finance minister, whatever the position's called in the Scotland administration, you know, she's someone that's been pretty robust in saying pretty, I think, sensible things on the economy, Jess, on growing Scotland's economy, because right now the SNP is in a coalition agreement with the Green Party. Now the Green Party, you know, are somewhere to the left of Chairman Mao. It's absolutely ridiculous. Scotland won't experience any meaningful economic growth. If anything, Scotland has pursued a reckless agenda which will hamper market competition and a whole host of other things. There's scandal after scandal in Scotland around taxpayer cash, Jess. And Kate Forbes would be really sensible, I think, and I say that as someone who isn't a particular fan of the SNP, but I think she would be sensible when it comes to Scotland's economy and actually what a post-independent Scotland could look like. You know, I don't think that would work personally, but you know, she's probably the one candidate who would actually make a sensible proposal on how it would be made a success story. But then on what you mentioned there on the gender ID bill, you're right. I mean, you've got three candidates so far that have put their heads above the parapet. You've got Humza Yousaf, who is currently the health secretary. Now, as you've just mentioned, the NHS is in total chaos in Scotland. So he's basically continuity Sturgeon. He said he would continue this gender ID stuff. No doubt he would pander to the Green Party to keep them supporting the government as well. So Nout would change under him. Kate Forbes would be an obvious change. She's saying that she doesn't support this gender ID bill. She would have voted against it, but she was on maternity leave. Then you've got Ash Regan, who actually resigned from government herself over this gender ID stuff, but she does support same sex marriage and all of these other things. So It's going to be a really quite interesting competition. I think Humza Yousaf is going to walk it, to be honest. I don't think there's going to be any surprises. But I find it really quite sad and depressing that we're basically saying that anyone that holds faith, and I think faith can be something really quite powerful, Jess. I think faith can actually guide a politician into, not lecturing people into what they should believe. She said explicitly that her views are her views, right? And she doesn't want to proselytize to those who need to be converted or whatever else. She's just saying, these are my views. But she has been precluded, and I doubt she'll get anywhere near the leadership. And a lot of candidates, a lot of senior SNP figures have actually pulled out of backing her because of these comments this morning. It's sad that mainstream Christian beliefs are viewed as airing those as a politician in Britain. It's viewed as brave to actually air those views. I mean, how far we have fallen in order for that to be considered bravery.